All right, today we're going to talk about a man whose single, brilliant idea completely revolutionized how we see the world and our place in it. His name? Charles Darwin. And his work didn't just add to science, it became the absolute foundation for all of modern biology.
And wow, what an idea it was. Darwin himself put it perfectly at the end of his famous book. He used these words to capture just how beautiful and awe-inspiring evolution is. This idea that every living thing in all its incredible variety could have sprung from one simple beginning.
But before he changed the world, he was just a young man trying to figure things out. So who was Charles Darwin before he became, Darwin? Looking at his early life, you probably wouldn't peg him as a future scientific revolutionary. I mean, he tried studying medicine, but that wasn't for him. Then he studied to become a minister. But the one thing that truly drove him, his real passion, was nature. He loved observing and collecting things out in the wild.
And this really gets to the heart of his genius. He didn't have any fancy high-tech labs or computers. What he did have was this super intense curiosity and an incredible knack for just noticing things. His mind was his most powerful instrument, letting him see patterns in the world that pretty much everyone else had missed.
Well, that amazing power of observation was about to be put to the ultimate test, because in 1831, he got an invitation to join a 5-year scientific journey around the entire globe on a ship called the HMS Beagle.
And get this, he was only 22 years old when this opportunity came up. He was basically still an amateur naturalist, and suddenly he's off on this epic adventure that wouldn't just define his life, but would end up shaking the whole world to its core. As the Beagle sailed from one continent to the next, Darwin was collecting thousands and thousands of specimens. But it was on a remote chain of volcanic islands, the Galapagos, where the clues for his big idea really started to fall into place.
So for example, he looked at the giant tortoises. He noticed that on islands where the plants were low to the ground, the tortoises had these dome-shaped shells and short necks. But on other islands where the food was higher up in cacti and shrubs, the tortoises had these cool saddle-shaped shells and long necks so they could reach their food. Each type of tortoise was perfectly suited or adapted to its specific home.
And this was the huge light bulb moment. Darwin started thinking, what if these tortoises weren't all created separately? What if they all came from a single common ancestor? And then over thousands, millions of years, they had gradually changed to fit the unique food sources on each island. This meant life wasn't fixed. It could change. It could evolve.
So after he got back to England, you'd think he'd rush to publish this wild idea, right? Nope. He knew it would cause a huge stir. So instead, he spent the next 2 decades at his country home, just quietly and meticulously gathering more and more evidence.
In his private notebooks, he sketched out this simple little tree, showing how one species could branch out and become many different species over time. He called this whole process descent with modification. It was this radical idea that all of life, everything, was connected in one gigantic family tree. And then you get this amazing twist that sounds like something out of a movie. Another British naturalist, a guy named Alfred Russel Wallace, was working halfway across the world, and get this, he independently came up with the exact same idea. In 1858, he mailed his work to Darwin. That letter was the push Darwin needed. A year later, he finally published his masterpiece, On the Origin of Species.
Okay, so what was this world-shaking idea? Darwin's mechanism for evolution is called natural selection. But how does this engine of change actually work?
At its core, it's actually a pretty simple but super powerful idea. In any group of living things, the ones that happen to have traits that make them a better fit for their environment are more likely to survive and have babies, and they'll pass those successful traits on. We sometimes call it survival of the fittest, but fittest just means the best fit for that one specific place.
You can actually think of it like a 4-step recipe. First, you need variation. No 2 individuals are exactly the same. Second, those traits can be passed down. That's inheritance. Third, you have selection, where some of those traits give an individual a better shot at surviving and reproducing. And fourth, the secret ingredient, is time. Lots and lots of time. Over countless generations, this process can create all the amazing diversity of life we see. Now, it's super important we get something straight about the word theory. In everyday chat, a theory can just be a hunch or a guess, right? But in science, a theory, like the theory of evolution or the theory of gravity, is the absolute highest level of scientific understanding. It's a huge explanation that's backed up by mountains of evidence.
And the thing is, the evidence for Darwin's theory has only gotten stronger and stronger over the years. It's really the bedrock that all of modern biology is built on.
Today, we have evidence Darwin could have only dreamed about. We can look at the DNA of different species and literally read their family history in their genetic code. We have a fossil record that shows a clear timeline of life changing over eons. And we have something called homology. That's when you see similar structures in different species, like how the bones in a human arm, a bat's wing, and a whale's flipper are all incredibly similar, pointing right back to a common ancestor.
And this isn't just some dusty old idea in a textbook. Understanding evolution literally saves lives. Every single year, scientists use the principles of natural selection to predict how flu viruses are going to change and evolve. That's how they develop new vaccines that work. That is Darwin's theory in action right there.
So, from a young man's curiosity to a theory that explains the entire tapestry of life, Darwin's journey gave us this profound new way of understanding where we came from. It really makes you wonder, right? What's the next great discovery that's going to change everything we think we know?